All right, let's come back together. Thank you for meeting people around you, for understanding who's influencing you today. How about a shout out? Where did you meet somebody? Where are they from? Just shout out where they're from. Costa Rica. Montreal. Lake Placid, Maine. The UK and Vermont. Wonderful. Huntington. That's my town. So happy you're here. Thank you, Evergreen. Great to see you. All right, so the morning is proceeding, and the morning's conversation, the second conversation of the morning, I should say, is about to take place. We're getting cozy, aren't we? We're getting cozy in this big, beautiful barn. You know, this barn was once the largest open-span structure in the entire country. And I think it's still, look at the sun come in, sort of brings us into this sort of cathedral-like space, an agrarian cathedral, right? That's where we are. Before I introduce this morning's panelists, there are 3 of them, I'd just like to briefly read again from the Earth Charter, not the principles per se, but the preamble. And many on the planning committee just find the Earth Charter to be so well written, a document with good sentences and lyricism and poignancy. So let me read this. Humanity is part of a vast, evolving universe. Earth, our home, is alive with a unique community of life. The forces of nature make existence a demanding and uncertain adventure, but Earth has provided the conditions essential to life's evolution. The resilience of the community of life and the well-being of humanity depend upon preserving a healthy biosphere with all its ecological systems, its rich variety of plants and animals, its fertile soils, its pure water and clean air. The global environment with its finite resources is a common concern of all of us, of all peoples, and its protection of Earth's vitality, diversity, and beauty, a sacred trust. I just find so much resonance in what Tiokasin was just sharing with that preamble, and that will be more of what we'll hear from the panelists now. To some, our panelists are very well known, but to others, you're being introduced for the first time. These are thinkers and doers who've aligned their work with Earth Charter principles and are here today to share that history and that community of thinking with us. What we'll do is I will introduce the panelists briefly to start, and then each will speak for approximately 6 to 8 minutes, responding to the title of our talk today on worldviews and values. We actually revised the title of our talk. It was originally Origin Stories and Why Ethics Matter, but then the panelists and I got together and we realized that the word worldview and the word values was more potent for us, more accessible, we thought. And so we've retreated to those words. All right, our first speaker will be Gus Speth. After Yale Law School, where Gus has been a dean, Gus has several decades of work in environmental groups, government, and universities. He has had a hand in creating 2 of the most well-known environmental groups in this country, the Natural Resources Defense Council and the World Resources Institute. Gus served in the Carter administration as an environmental advisor. How many of us were here with the Carter administration? Beautiful, beautiful. And deep sorrow that President Jimmy Carter has passed on. Gus has been an advisor to the United Nations as the head of the UN Development Program, and for a decade he served, as I mentioned at first, as the Dean of the Yale Law School, the Dean of the Yale School of the Environment, and then later Vermont Law School. Now, and I love this because Gus wrote his own bio, he writes essays and poems from his home in Vermont. Let's hear from Gus first.
Thank you, Amy. It's great to see everybody here. My goodness, how wonderful. Before I launch into this, I want to join with others here in expressing our appreciation and admiration for my friend and your friend, Stephen Rockefeller. Thank you. I want to tell you the story of two realizations that I've had. They were like epiphanies in slow motion. I wish they could have been faster. It was when I left activism and joined academia that I came to the first of these realizations. As I began teaching and researching for my courses, I came to appreciate that 35 years after Earth Day, we were in worse shape than we were when we began in 1970. American environmentalism, I was forced to conclude, was failing. We were failing. We are failing. That realization led to a big shift for me. I became a writer, writing book after book and article after article on what went wrong and what we should do now. 3 of these books were published by Yale Press and 1 by MIT. It was serious stuff. As I worked harder and harder on the data and harder at trying to understand, I became more and more concerned about our future. Our social and environmental problems, I concluded, are difficult because they are almost all, social and environmental, the result of our terribly flawed system of political economy. And so I became downright radical in my views, somewhere a bit to leftward of Pope Francis and Pope Bernie. My favorite banner at the climate demonstrations, which I try to find and get under, is system change, not climate change. And I often quote the Reverend William Barber. Thank you. I often quote the Reverend William Barber, who many times has said, what we need is transformative change. So my books and articles are full of policy and analysis and recommendations, and most of them pursue the design of a new political economy, one that would clearly give priority to people and place and planet on a routine basis. This work didn't ignore value change as part of system change. Indeed, some of my books quote the Earth Charter at great length. But eventually I came to the second realization, another epiphany-like one. I concluded that value change is not just part of the equation of the future, it is the most fundamental thing about the future. I stated this realization at a conference, and it quickly went viral. Indeed, it's the only thing that I've ever written or said in all those books that ever did go viral. And it was kind of off the cuff. Here it is. I used to think the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse and climate change. I thought that with 30 years of good science, we could address these problems. But I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness and greed and apathy, and to deal with those, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation. So the new me decided to put some of this into a little poem. Decades of discourse, scientists, economists, lawyers, and here we are, stuck. That discourse cannot do what must be done to reach the human heart. The core problems of greed and arrogance and apathy are dominant values gone astray. What we need now is not more analysis, but a spiritual awakening to a new consciousness. So, bring on the preachers and the prophets, the poets and the philosophers. Bring on the storytellers, musicians and artists, the teachers of ancient wisdoms. Call them to strike the chords of our shared humanity, of our close kin to wild things. So let's agree that a transformation of values is now essential. What new cultural values are needed now? What new consciousness is needed now? Well, the Earth Charter is a brilliant answer to these questions. And I know that Mary Evelyn and Sam are going to address these questions with equal brilliance. What I want to add is the idea that value change, that cultural change, is not something that we simply wait on to happen in its own sweet time. We know how to transform our values and our culture as a country and hopefully as a world. And we better get on with it soon. How then do we escape the fetters of anthropocentrism, materialism, militarism, and do it before it's too late? Well, here are 8 things that can change social values. A crisis. Crises can and will delegitimate the current system and the status quo. Crises will happen, and we have to be crisis ready. Social movements. Social movements are all about raising consciousness. Leadership and storytelling. We need a new story, a new dream, and we need leaders from many communities to tell it again and again. The faith communities, they can reach more people faster than anyone, and they speak with credibility and dedication. The arts. Here I mean all forms of artistic, creative expression, including Sally's lovely arc. Instructive models. We need to seed the landscape with communities and individuals living these new values every day. Education. Of course, schools must not shy away from teaching about social ethics and cultural values. And lastly, we need to tamp down the propagation of wrong values like materialism and consumerism. Let's face it, advertising is a scourge. We are all motivated by our dreams and sustained by our hopes. The big risk here is encountering hopelessness, the most miserable condition of all. Let me conclude then with a poem. It's about how being in the struggle, even against daunting conditions, can give us meaning and keep our hope alive in a meaningful way. It's called Fight Song. The snow lies lightly on the lilacs round by the kitchen door. The juncos peck in stone cracks endless in their search for more. I think that is my way too, to keep the search going on. What else could I really do but find new ways to scorn? As Camus said of Sisyphus, who toiled with his stone, there is no fate for us that can't be beat by scorn. And so I scorn what passes here today for equality and justice before the law, for helping immigrants to find a way, for promises the troops will withdraw. O purple mountain majesty, O fruited plains of amber grain, the machine crushes endlessly everything for investment's gain. And so we search for ways to fight. We know our hope we must hold too, but we know as well to make it right, there's more than hope that we must do. We've seen the heads bandaged around, the men and women tiered by gas. Each has earned a special crown. They know the system will not last. Scorn, rage, and many actions, protests coming around the world. Today we see but a fraction of banners yet to be unfurled. Thank you.
Thank you. Here we are. Gus, thank you so much. You know, as I mentioned, Gus lives in Vermont, but from that accent, you'd never think. What a beautiful combination of the South and New England, beautifully fashioned into one. Thank you for that. Our second speaker today is Mary Evelyn Tucker, a good friend of Gus's, as it turns out. Mary Evelyn Tucker is co-director with John Grimm of the Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology and an affiliated faculty with the Yale Center for Environmental Justice at the School of the Environment. Mary Evelyn has organized too many conferences to list here, many, and written equally many volumes on the subject of religion and ecology, and is well known for her work on Thomas Berry, a cultural historian and Catholic priest who recognized a spiritual crisis in humanity's environmental challenges. Mary Evelyn is an inspiring teacher, an academic researcher, and producer of the multimedia project and award-winning Journey of the Universe, which I highly recommend to each and every one of you. Let's hear from Mary Evelyn.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you all the organizers for this incredible event. Can we have a round of applause for them? Thank you. And of course, Paul Winter, we haven't officially really stood up for. What music! And so many people have thanked Stephen Rockefeller, and I just want to say, in working on the drafting of the Earth Charter for several years, 4 and 5 years with Stephen, there's no experience in my life, except my marriage to John, that compares. What he did for that charter to birth it, non-parallel. So let's give it up for Stephen. You know, we rest in gratitude, don't we? We rest with the spirits of this place, with the ancestors of this space, with our own lineages. And they are pouring into this moment, aren't they? Can't you feel it? We are at, as we know, and as the Charter says at the beginning, at the most critical moment in human history, the most critical moment. And that's what the Charter is addressing, and that's why its time is now. It's critical time. It was 25 years early, but it is absolutely time. Why? We have a magnificent Declaration of Independence, 250 years old next year, we'll celebrate it. But we don't have, and the Charter is, our Declaration of Interdependence. Interdependence, which everybody feels and knows. Exactly, Declaration of Interdependence. That's what this is. There's no place like it. It took 10 years and more. And it was the most civil society document in human history. Women coming into the room late at night and saying, we've got to put this into the thing. Business saying we have to do this. Indigenous peoples, et cetera. Absolutely inclusive, because people were listening. It was a transformative moment. So I want to begin, actually, and I'm so glad Amy lifted up the preamble, because that's actually what I worked on most, with some scientists and an incredible Confucian scholar. And this is the line that I love so much that she also read. Humanity is part of a vast, evolving universe. Earth, our home, is alive with a unique community of life. Unique community of life. Now here's the thing. That fusion of science, of evolutionary biology, and a sense of a living universe, which is shared by indigenous peoples. We just heard it beautifully from Tiokasin, who was a good friend and came to teach in our classes. It's also present in the Asian religions, the ones I study. Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism, sentient beings live with us. Most of the world's people have had this sense of a living universe. This phrase, when we came to Rio in 1997, after the 92 conference, that Gorbachev, the head of the Soviet Union and leader of that Earth Summit, said we need a 10 commandments for the environment and development. 97, Gorbachev is standing up on a stage, holding up the first draft of the Earth Charter. And I'm in a row with indigenous peoples all the way across the room, hundreds and hundreds of people in this room. And as we stood up and especially heard that line, humanity's part of a vast evolving universe, Earth, our home, is alive with a unique community of life. These indigenous peoples were weeping because they saw their worldview in an international document for the first time. Gripping, life-changing, profound. So, this sense is absolutely central to the Earth Charter. And what is it about that spirit? It's an integrated cosmology that Thomas Berry, our teacher, called a cultural and functional cosmology, a functional cosmology. And why? Because this sensibility of aliveness that he described as a communion of subjects, so many people know that word, and my young friends, my students, I give you an intergenerational handshake into this notion that Berry said, Earth is not a collection of objects, but a communion of subjects, a communion of subjects, and that changes everything. Now, a functional cosmology is something that inspires us. It's not just a beautiful vision. We made Journey of the Universe to inspire transformative change that Gus spoke to and has worked himself for decades. And that's why the heart of the Charter Is this integration absolutely profound and thought through? Ecology, the integrity of ecosystems. Ecology, justice, social and economic justice, and democracy, nonviolence, and peace. Ecology woven with the human with justice. Don't you love it? This is who we're working for. And we need that integration of ecology, justice, and peace. No one section is sufficient. We can't deal with militarism. We're not dealing with it. We can't deal with the inequities except put justice together, social and economic justice. And the integrity of ecosystems, a system like we're celebrating right here at Shelburne Farm, is essential to all life. We know this. Okay, I'm going to conclude with one final story. I've said we've got the cosmology now. And by the way, those of you who love the Natural History Museum in New York, the Hall of the Universe, Hall of Earth, Hall of Biodiversity, that all opened at the same time as the Earth Charter was launched in The Hague, 2000. It's 25 years old that millions of people from the US but across the world have gone through those exhibits. And now, the one that's been added is Invisible Worlds. And this is my final point, just 2 years old at the museum. Okay, we're moving to reweaving this universe story into a living Earth community. And that reweaving requires relearning the language of nature. The language of nature. And it's bursting all around the planet in very specific ways. And I just want to say, it's part of the story here. Thomas Berry, this extraordinary cultural historian and geologian, at the end of his life, maybe 89, suffered a stroke, and he could not read. This is a man who had 10,000 books in his library, one of the most incredible teachers ever on the planet. He could not read. Did he give up? He didn't. And we'd visit him down in Wellspring Retirement Center, walk into the room of his apartment. The whole room was filled with little post-its, chair, desk, lamp, bookshelf. On his desk was a first-grade reader and reading teachers he was relying on. And he recovered the ability to read. Incredible. Resilience, dedication, aspiration. That's what all of you have here, including you fabulous students coming from the University of Vermont and elsewhere. You have resilience. You have the possibility of this transformative action because we are learning how to reread the Earth community in all kinds of ways, aren't we? The explosion of the intelligences of nature around the world now, this amazing sense of sentience differentiated with animals, with birds, with flowers, with cellular life, entangled worlds of sheldrake, and how we think through the communications of forests, how forests think, Secret Life of Trees. You know these books, you know these people. It is exploding around the planet that we live in a living Earth community, right? It's right here. So our final offering into the world that relates so deeply to the Earth Charter in October is a Knowledge Commons, which identifies a lot of this work being done all over the planet. The intelligences of nature that we can see and feel and people are identified from the science community, from the nature community. Robin Kimmerer's book exploded, right? Intelligence of nature, ecological worldviews, how we respond to them, deep time, animacy, ecological spirituality, etc. Fabulous. And finally, Earth law, Earth jurisprudence, rights of nature, how we can protect these amazing living communities of life. Sam is working with the Forum on Religion and Ecology, helping to create this. Gus has been working in the law his whole life. So let me conclude, because I think this is a very exciting moment of the invisible worlds at the Natural History Museum and the internal communications of life. Here's from the charter, and Amy actually read it too. The resilience of the community of life and the well-being of humanity depend on preserving a healthy biosphere with all its ecological systems, a rich variety of plants and animals, fertile soils, pure waters, clean air. The global environment with its finite resources is a common concern for all peoples. The protection of Earth's vitality, diversity, and beauty is a sacred trust. Let us lift up that sacred trust here and beyond. Thank you so much.
I just have to say, I'm just loving how things are coming together. So I'm starting to breathe a beautiful sigh of relief as the day unfolds and the speakers unfold and the words are shared and the audience responds. It's all going as we hoped. So thank you, Mary Evelyn, for those. It's such an incredible career and history and legacy of being with these ideas for so long. It obviously so clear, such a generous, so generous of you to share them. All right, our last panelist, before we launch into some vibrant discussion among these three wonderful people, is Sam King. And as you've already heard from Mary Evelyn, a reference to Sam. Sam is an environmental educator, writer, and activist with undergraduate and graduate degrees in religion and environmental studies. Sam serves as a lead mentor for Yale Coursera courses in religion and ecology. And as I understand it, Sam has been a student of Mary Evelyn and John Grimm's. He currently helps develop with Mary Evelyn and John the project Journey of the Universe as a project manager, hosting its podcasts and maintaining these stories and elevating them worldwide through that multimedia project. So please help me in welcoming Sam King.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Amy, and thank you for the honor of being next to my dear mentor and teacher and colleague, Mary Evelyn Tucker, and one of our great inspirations, Gus Speth. It's truly a real gift to follow in the wake of these wise elders. And truly, as a millennial, as somebody who came into this Earth Charter community in the last 5 years, I'm truly indebted to these and so many wise elders, to Sam Crowell, to Cammie Davis, to all the organizing committee, to everybody who has really greeted us with this intergenerational handshake to give those of us in younger generations, those of us in Gen Z and Gen Alpha, a reason for a hopeful future. And that vision, that collective dream is really what brings us all together here at this Earth Charter anniversary. Mary Evelyn shared those opening words from the preamble of the Earth Charter, that humanity is part of a vast, evolving universe. Earth, our home, is alive with a unique community of life. What a powerful cosmology to remind us of our place on this living planet under this beautiful full moon today, as we await the fall equinox here in the Northern Hemisphere. That living cosmology is so essential to what the Earth Charter is bringing forth. This idea that we speak to in the Journey of the Universe project, that we are the conscious self-expression of 13.8 billion years of cosmic creativity. We are an outpouring of the creativity of our blue-green planet across some 4.6 billion years of cosmic evolution. And what a profound lineage to participate creatively within, as we ourselves, through our work in living the Earth Charter, seek to participate creatively in the flourishing of our planet amidst very trying times. We are indeed at this moment of profound transformation, and I would suggest we are moving beyond an outmoded worldview, a worldview that has treated the Earth as an elaborate machine, as a platform for the human drama to unfold. This is the worldview that Thomas Berry describes as a collection of objects. Perhaps the mechanistic worldview inherited from Isaac Newton that treated the world as nothing more than discrete parts that could be manipulated and exploited for human gain, especially for the wealthy and for the privileged. We have seen the dire results of this outmoded worldview in our rising climate crisis, in the Earth's sixth mass extinction event, and in the extractive paradigm that has exploited so many of our Earth's wondrous ecosystems and dispossessed native peoples from their ancestral lands. This outmoded worldview, I would suggest, is also leading to and contributing to a youth mental health crisis. According to a recent Lancet survey, 75% of young people between 16 and 25 are frightened about the future. 45% of young people say that climate change affects their daily life and functioning. How do we respond to these sobering realities? Well, the Earth Charter offers us a hopeful possibility for our path forward. For one, I suggest we can celebrate and lift up the living Earth community, as Mary Evelyn called it from Thomas Berry, is a functional cosmology for our time. A way of understanding ourselves as part of a sentient and profoundly intelligent and communicative world. I was just reading yesterday that the Clark's nutcracker, a species that lives in the western Rockies region, can remember the locations of over 10,000 places of buried pine nuts, migrating down to Central America, returning after the winter, and remembering the spatial locations, tens of thousands of buried nuts. What a profound sensibility. And so, with this project Mary Evelyn mentioned of the Living Earth community, we are lifting up these intelligences of nature throughout plants and animals and fungi and cells and bacteria. With my colleague Tara Trapani, we are helping to map the terrain of these profound revelations that are being gifted us from contemporary science, and yet are so grounded in ancient indigenous cosmovisions of a living Earth community. And we are also celebrating the various ecological worldviews from diverse cultures across our planet, as well as movements like Mary Evelyn mentioned of the rights of nature and earth law that are affirming the rights of the Marañón River in Peru just recently, of the Wanganui River in Maori lands of New Zealand, to affirm the innate dignity and right to exist and flourish of these river bodies. I would also suggest we can respond by teaching and infusing the values of the Earth Charter throughout our communities. And I'll offer some ideas for how we can continue to work toward that collective purpose. For one, we can live out those 4 values of the Earth Charter through creative modes of environmental pedagogy. This past April, for the 3rd straight year, we had a Marist Earth Day in Esopus among 200 acres of forested land along the Hudson River, what the ancestral Lenape have called the river that runs both ways. And we brought together student leaders from 10 schools for an immersion into native planting and the health of the river. We did a case study on the well-being of the river, and the students were different stakeholders representing the river, representing local communities, local governance, private industry, coming together to speak out and lift up how do we remediate and protect this river. Second, I would suggest we need to foreground that sense of systems thinking in our education, to give these case studies to students and young people to allow them to connect the natural sciences with the social sciences with the humanities, to see that the challenges we face are interconnected and the solutions we need are interconnected solutions. We need to foreground inner development, to look at the inner dimensions of transformation to support the transition toward a more just and sustainable world by bringing in reflection into our pedagogies, bringing in mindfulness and other spiritual practices, honoring the interiority of our young people. And finally, we need to empower the young people to unleash their creativity for a more just and flourishing world. I think of all of our young people gathered here from the University of Vermont, taking time out of their busy weekend. How do we give them opportunities to participate creatively in a better world? I think of a student I work with named Andrew at a school in Florida who recognized a challenge of plastic waste at his school. He began collecting plastic and he partnered with an organization called Campus for Green to turn that plastic into lanyards and pens and benches that are now featured at the school. Through empowering our youth leaders and giving them opportunities to unleash their creativity, we can respond to the challenges of our time by restoring hope in a more just and flourishing world. And so that is my vision for all of you, and especially for our young people here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's great. Great.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sam. So appreciate your perspective, and I'm sure I can see people coming from the University of Vermont appreciating how you address them too. So thank you for that. So we have now just about 15, 20 minutes to be in conversation, have these minds be in conversation together, have there be some surprise about what one might say to another. I know you all know each other, that you're all friends and colleagues, that you're teachers and mentors to each other. And yet I'm hoping that there will be some unveiling of some new ideas or some catalyst between you and among you. I want to begin by asking how our panelists are responding to Tiokasin's provocation. The provocation that I heard multiple times from Tiokasin was, we are Earth. We are Earth. We stand not as objects, as distanced. We are the communion, as you say. We are Earth. Can each of you just give us a little bit about what does that mean, we are Earth, to you individually, personally? Sam, let's start with you.
Thanks, Amy. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah. What this journey of the universe perspective has helped teach me is that each of us carries the imprint of the same primal energies that burst forth some 2 trillion galaxies, each with hundreds of millions of stars. And so when I live into this experience that we are Earth, I see ourselves as a conscious expression of deep time. I see us as Brian Swim would say, the progressive wavefront of cosmic evolution. And I think that sensibility is so vital to see that we don't have to do this alone, right? We can partner with the creativity of the Earth to address the challenges of our time. In fact, I think this is so important so we don't fall into solutionsism or techno-optimism, that our gadgets, our devices, our technologies alone will save us, but to really listen to the Earth, to the creativity of the Earth, and allow, as Tiokasin invites us, that deep Earth wisdom to speak through us.
Well, of course, I would echo. Can you? Yeah, I would echo what Sam just said, and that's what Thomas Berry was saying his whole life. Tiokasin came often to our classes, and Thomas Berry was teaching indigenous classes in 1975, and John has been studying it with Thomas and many others for a long, long time. So I think number one is just, of course, yes. And the fact that traditional environmental knowledge and lifeways is well appreciated now, as it wasn't 20 years ago. Science is binding together with traditional environmental knowledge of how you preserve forests, what you do with rivers instead of damming them, allow the salmon to go back up, and what does management mean? We had at our school a whole series in one semester of traditional environmental knowledge for forest management. Thousands of people were listening. So clearly it's a worldview, isn't it, as Tiokasin was inviting us into, but it has incredible implications for ecology and justice and peace, as the Earth Charter would say. So it's wonderful to have Tiokasin here.
Thank you. Thank you. Coming in? Yeah. Thank you. Well, I think Sam and Mary Evelyn have done such a good job with this. I hesitate. I think of We Are Earth. When I think of that phrase, and I love it, I wonder how communicative it is to point out our similarity in terms of our DNA with wild things. I mean, We Are Earth in part because we share DNA with other creatures to a dramatic percent. Even worms share a huge proportion of DNA with Homo sapiens. And that is very persuasive, I think, to a lot of people. The other thing that occurs to me is that if we are Earth, we're killing ourselves. The data on the loss of species and variety within species is very dramatic. The populations of individual species monitored by the IUCN, for example, on average, is down about 50% now. I mean, we're killing ourselves in that sense. And we've got to put the biodiversity issue back on the front burner. It has escaped attention, and a lot of great groups have worked on these issues for years. You think of World Wildlife Fund and Conservation International and all the groups that are out there fighting and Nature Conservancy. But in the end, we're losing this struggle badly. And our children will never know the diversity of this planet unless we change our ways quickly. One of the things I've written about is Earth without humans. I mean, how valuable is our current behavior weighed against the tremendous damage to other life on the planet? What would we prefer to give up? our aggrandizement, or 90% of the remaining wildlife populations of all types on the planet. This is a tremendous challenge that we've got to face up to. Thank you.
And what a reminder Paul Winter's wood thrush music has for us when we think about the thrushes and the music and the devastating idea that we might lose that music and sound in our lives. I think each of you have gestured and made reference to these being critical times. And we know that the Earth Charter starts with the notion that we are at a critical moment in history. I wonder, Mary Evelyn, maybe you could start us off thinking about what makes this moment historically critical in a political sense, and how you are simultaneously alert to this historical moment, but tracking and mapping the kinds of progress that the Earth Charter has helped instruct.
Well, that's such a critical and important question, isn't it? Thank you, Amy. As was the question, of course, about We Are Earth. I am a historian of world religions, thanks to Thomas Berry, who was a historian, and my grandfather was a historian at Columbia of European history. And history matters in terms of this question. I think it's clear to all of us that what's happening politically, socially, economically is beyond anything we could have imagined in our lifetime. I'm a 60s person. I demonstrated hugely for civil rights, anti-Vietnam War. I'm sure we're all on the same page in that era. But this is on a level that's extremely dangerous, as we know. But we were working a lot in China these days. My area is Confucianism, and since the pandemic, we've been back and forth about 4 times. And at one point I said to a Chinese colleague at the table, well, what do you think, about these significant times? And they're working on something called ecological civilization, which is in their constitution. And it's a whole other story, but it includes material, social, political, economic, and environmental changes. Now, this gentleman just sat there and looked at me with a big smile, and he said, well, it'll take 100 years. And I do think many other countries of the world think in much more long range. I think this is really important for us. But the other thing is, because it's so tremendously challenging, I think our resilience, our intergenerational handshakes to young people, and what Sam said, is ever more essential. And there are people all over the planet doing extraordinary work against great, great odds. Hope in the Dark, Rebecca Solnit, Alan Wiseman has a fabulous book on case studies of people doing this kind of work. So it's a long range and it's resilience, I think, that we're going to need.
I love thinking at the century timescale. Although, Sam, you had us thinking at the billion-year timescale. Tell us what you're thinking historically about this moment and how you're mapping progress that's based in the values of the Earth Charter.
Thank you, Amy. And I've heard that it's one of the paradoxes of our time. Can you hear me okay? I've heard that it's one of the paradoxes of our time that we need to move quickly and yet also be slow and mindful. And I think that is so true. I've been a big supporter of the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty. I think we are at an inflection point with the climate crisis, and we need to move faster and more quickly toward just adoption of renewable energy sources, solar, wind, geothermal. Frankly, we are experiencing in this country an authoritarian backlash against a more interconnected global world. It's kind of a viral moment, I think, in this country's history. But we cannot be deterred by the aberration, the distractions. We need to be present to what is happening and yet continue to build grassroots ecological movements for resilience and regeneration. I think we need to be strengthening local communities, supporting grassroots movements. We just had a major solar project on one of the schools I work with that was in partnership with Catholic Energies just in the last few weeks. I've partnered with students who've planted over 6 pollinator gardens at our various schools throughout the country. And so while we cannot be naive to the social justice and ecological devastation we are seeing, especially in the leadership of this country, the Earth Charter offers us a more interconnected and hopeful global compass for how to move forward. And I do think this is helpful to think about the deep time future, right? We think about the deep time past. We need to be listening to what the Haudenosaunee Iroquois peoples have taught about looking 7 generations into the future in making decisions with our energy choices, with our food choices, with our ecological protection decisions. How do we think about 7 generations into the future to ensure the flourishing of people and this planet for generations to come?
Thank you, Sam. Brilliant, just brilliant. And I can imagine that Gus, I saw him reach for the microphone at one point, like I have something to think and say, because obviously, Gus, you've been in bureaucracies, from the Carter administration to the United Nations, certainly counseling all manner of presidents. Tell us about your take on the history and where you're mapping progress.
Well, I think it'd be hard to add, it is hard to add to what we just heard from Sam and Mary Evelyn. That was brilliant, I thought, both. When I think of a crisis, why this is a time of crisis, a moment of crisis, I think about it in the medical sense, the point at which the patient sort of recovers or goes downhill, alternatively. And I think the reason it's a time of crisis is that we're at that point. And it's blatantly clear in the US, I'm sure, that you see that. But I think it's also true, if we look at Europe and other places, that this is a moment of bifurcation when the patient is, has a chance still of recovery, but is not going to put odds on it. But there's also a chance of sort of terminal slide. A lot of the community that I work with have developed scenarios of the future, and a lot of the science fiction literature goes into this as well, and some kind of breakdown or collapse is prominent in these scenarios. And when I used to teach those scenarios for students, both at Yale and at the Vermont Law and Graduate School, we would discuss these alternatives and then we'd put it to a vote. Do you think any of these collapse and breakdown scenarios, barbarization was one of them, or is there a new society, a new possibility scenario, or anyhow, there were a family of 6 usually that the students voted on, and I have to tell you that a large percentage thought that we were headed for some form of disaster as societies around the world. Maybe that was just my teaching, but anyhow, that's so I think I mentioned, and I think the root of the possibility of hope is in fundamentally forcing societies to face up to what there is being faced, and through those various mechanisms that I ticked off in my little talk, to bring about a transformation of consciousness in our country and abroad. And I just would add that as we think about this polycrisis, as many have called it, and Mary Evelyn ticked off, we have to remember that this was prominent in our thinking and in analysis long before Trump. This administration has exacerbated almost everything. It is that we don't want to happen, in my view. But I wrote a book 20 years ago which had a little diagram of this bifurcation in it. So it wasn't hard to anticipate that we would find ourselves in this moment, increasingly prominently in this moment. So we just got to fight back. We've got to push back in every way that we can. A fusion of forces among different communities would be a big asset in this fight. We have hundreds of different communities, progressive communities, siloed in their own realms. And until there's a fusion of forces, a movement of movements among the progressive communities, we're not going to win. But with that, we could win.
All right, we're going to come to just a final grace through these incredible minds and thinkers and energies, and then move on to the last bit of pageant before lunch. So if your tummies are rumbling and you're ready to stretch your legs, it's soon upon us. I want to ask each panelist, just in closing here, to do two things for us. And I'll give them a moment to think about another phrase from Tiokasin. And that phrase that stood out for me was to apply mystery to everything. So we'll leave the profane a bit for a moment, the political and the profane, and have you think, how do you, in your everyday lives, apply mystery to everything? So be thinking about that. And the second thing I want, perhaps this is my own desire, and I have the microphone so I can ask, is give us a resource. Where do you go? What do you read? What do you see? What do you do? Not only for that mystery, but when the profane just feels too despairing, where do you go? So give us, share with us your resources so that we might leave living in this beautiful push and pull between the sacred and the deep time and the centuries-long progress or project that we are in the midst of, but simultaneously feeling grounded in our everyday. Okay, so two things. How are you applying mystery to everything? And number two, give us a resource. Mary Evelyn, start us off.
Well, again, a great question, Amy. We have an hour, maybe. No, but I think, if you don't mind my saying, though, I think part of our problem is seeing sacred and profane as separate. And that's where I would begin, really. Because it's very dialectic, very dualistic. It's very good and bad, evil and not so good, black and white. And I don't think we can use that lens anymore. I really don't. And it's why when I went to Japan in '73 in total frustration with the politics here, and I'm not saying they are perfect by any means, but an Asian yin-yang changes our vision of things. I really do think that's true. So we are living, this is the whole point of We Are Earth. We are living, and this is Thomas Berry's book, which I really recommend, it's a sacred universe. And the great essay in there is, there's no spirituality without spirituality from the earth. But what Thomas was saying, what Brian is saying, what Journey is saying, this is not just beautiful. There is chaos at the heart of matter. And chaos is creativity. So we have emergence and we have transformation and self-organizing processes and messes. But I'm not saying anything Pollyannish, but I am saying Earth processes can teach us something of a new kind of reverence, a new kind of awe and wonder. And that is, for me, a beginning of an answer to this really important question. I do try and live with mystery and awe every day. We have a garden that John cares for, we have Zen garden, I do Zen meditation and all of this. But it's just something about thinking mystery is infused with these earth processes and everything we're doing, and even the mistakes we make. And so the resources are what I think I just said, I do meditation, I pray in the 4 directions, as a native person told us 50 years ago. I do candles and incense to ground myself in the morning. I try and dim down the emails, everything that people are thinking about. And I go back and read Barry, and I read Teilhard de Chardin, who's fantastic. So those are some.
Yeah, enormous, already an enormous list, but a wonderful start. Thank you. Sam.
I think our sense of awe and mystery is what guides us as dream-making mammals. I think of myself as a 23-year-old young teacher teaching 9th and 10th grade philosophy and religion courses, and I stumbled upon a program on Journey of the Universe with Mary Evelyn Tucker and John Grimm. And I followed that trail of inspiration because it made me feel like I came alive. It made me feel like I was connected to something larger. And here I am some 8, 9 years later with Mary Evelyn and John at this beautiful gathering. And so to our young people here, I would say, trust what makes you come alive, as Howard Thurman would say. Trust what makes you come alive. The vocations, the careers of the future are emerging, right? Life is not a linear career path, but a vocational journey. And so trust that which makes you come alive, and you'll find your way through this world. And the practice I would suggest, I had a teacher in graduate school. I went to divinity school, did an interdisciplinary program in religion and ecology. And something he said stuck with me, which was that authentic prayer is the difference between bird hunting and bird watching. And that always stuck with me, because I love to bird watch. I love to go into the woods and just listen to the songs of the wood thrush, as Paul invoked this morning, and to the songs of the red-winged blackbird and the blue jay and the yellow warbler. So that attunement to our lyrical singing earth is what sustains me.
Thank you, Sam. I love how a bunch of young people, because of Mary Evelyn and Sam, are thinking, maybe divinity school. What a beautiful outcome that would be. Gus, please.
Yeah, I better hurry up because things, I wrote a little poem once about a politician whose ideas flew through his mind so quickly they hardly stopped to say goodbye. And so mysteries, I'm a very down-to-earth person, I fear. Mysteries to me are, I was really influenced by Mary Evelyn's work on Journey of the Universe, and the mystery to me is the beginning. We really don't have a clue why we're here in the sense of creation, in my view. So I have a lot of questions about cosmology. They're very mysterious to me. Another area of great mystery is quantum mechanics. We really don't have a clue about how we're put together. Even time is quantized, I've read. And then I think, to me, the most sort of practical mystery is whether we are so flawed as a species that our chances of getting through to something that we all dream of is possible. Bill McKibben, bless him, we're going to hear from him later today, I think. One time said at a conference I was at, he said, "We'll know soon enough whether the big brain was a good idea." And so that's a great mystery. In terms of sustaining oneself in the face of all of these things, I like to cook. And I like to be with my wife. And I like music. Oh, Lord, I wouldn't be anywhere without music. And thank you, Paul Witter.
Well, yes. Thank you, Paul Winter. And thank you, Sam and Mary Evelyn and Gus. Please help me in thanking. Elevate our thinking, challenge our thinking, expand our thinking. That's what just happened for us. All right, so the morning portion of our celebration is almost concluded. There are food trucks outside. There's water and bathrooms also available. Please enjoy the cyanotype banners by artist Renee Greenlee. Cammie Davis's paintings here behind me, gracing our stage. And of course, visit, yes, thank you, Cammie's beautiful work. And please visit Sally Linder's Sally Linder's Ark of Hope here in the center, and the Temenos books that are here in the back and accompany it. When we return from lunch at 1 o'clock, you'll be listening for the cowbells. They'll bring you back. We'll have more conversation here on the stage, a dance performance inspired by animal murmuration, more music from Paul and Dave, remarks from Bill McKibben, as Gus has said, and a story on the Ark of Hope. Before we leave the barn, however, we have a little bit of choreography, just a minute's worth. If you feel comfortable, please close your eyes. Now imagine yourself in a cloud of thousands of starlings. What might that feel like? To be surrounded on all sides by wings, in cloud formation and gathering information at the same time. Now open your eyes, and if you feel comfortable, bring both palms to your chest. And I invite you to rapidly, with both hands, pat your chest like the sound of birds. We can now follow Erin Just and her Children of the Sky to dance outside to lunch. Enjoy.